何よ、アニメアディクツアノニマスのライブブロードキャストやってるって言ってるでしょ。聞きなさいよね。You're listening to the Anime Addicts Anonymous Podcast. Make your anime addiction worse at AAAPodcast.com. And now, here are your anime addicts.
Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast, or for today's episode, episode 1 of the Manga Maniacs Mysterious. This is an offshoot, weird pseudo world where my two co-hosts, Mitsugi and Caroline, who are usually with me every week to talk about anime, are not here. They're hanging out together. They're having a grand old time. I was not invited. I was not blessed with their greatness, so this is a Mason solo podcast. So let me bring my stand-ins for them. Set them up live on Twitch. We have Mitsugi here. And we've got Caroline. So I've still got company. And welcome. If this is your first time listening, this is going to be definitely not the normal operating procedure, but we will have fun regardless. We will talk about all sorts of things, but this will mainly be a manga-centric episode. Don't worry, we'll do a little bit of anime nonsense for you guys out there, and we'll just have fun. This is low-key, and let's see what happens. So, big news of the week, we'll get to it. All that good stuff, we'll get to it, but stay tuned because we have our 2023 anime Oscars on the horizon that will be coming out shortly. And to whet your appetite, if you need another award show to tide you over, the Our Anime Awards will be doing a live stream on March 2nd. And your boy might have some opinions about the suspense category. So check that out if you want to see that. They do a great job over there, and we are always so pleased to join them in that endeavor. So, general housekeeping, we do stream this live every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. I was going to have all these visuals set up for this episode, and I just botched it. I just had a bunch of audio issues and technical stuff going on, so maybe the edited version on YouTube will be a bit cleaner. You can always go there for that, but also, this is going to be a podcast anyway, so it's listening. Nobody cares. We're having a good old time. But we do a bunch of extra episodes, usually every week, hobby episodes, hentai episodes, after parties. That's not going to happen this week, so this is just a low-key, laid-back, fun little discussion about manga. But first, let's get to the big news of the week.
It's time for big news of the week.
And as you might expect, we got some manga news for all of you. The first up is the one-shot of Chainsaw Man creator Tatsuki Fujimoto called Look Back is getting an animated film. This will be coming out in Japan on April 28th. It's directed by Kiyotaka Oshiyama, who most famously did Flip Flappers, with a new studio, Studio Durian, which is a funny name, who haven't done much yet. And if you've never read Look Back or experienced it and you're like, oh, I love Chainsaw Man, am I going to get more of that? Not quite. This is far less wild. This is a much more restrained story about jealousy, kinship, and the pursuit of talent. I'm a sucker for stuff like Blue Period or Bakuman, and this is a short about this creator of manga who is just getting into it as a child and kind of her growth through the years and with her, compatriots. And it doesn't take long to read. I'm not expecting this to be a full feature-length movie. Nonetheless, I am very excited for it, even if it will be very low-key. It does hit those emotional beats. I think it is worth reading, and I think it will be better almost in animated form with some of the motions that kind of get messy at the end, but I'm not going to spoil too much. I definitely will be watching it and recommend that you do the same. Two news for the monthly shoujo magazine Basatsu Margaret, which has two big announcements coming out. One, Karuhiro Shina will launch a brand new manga titled Topu to Best, or Beast of Wind and Beat, or Blast of Wind and Beat, in the April edition. And this is Shina's first new series in 18 years since, as most people know her from, Kimi ni Todoke from Me to You, which is a huge cornerstone of the shoujo manga series. Came out in 2006, or finished up there, so very excited to see what that will be like. And it will also be revealed that Blue Spring Ride and Love Me Not creator Io Saka will launch a new series in the magazine this summer as well. Her stuff always gets adapted in some ways, either in anime, live action, or sometimes both, as in the case with Blue Spring Ride. And they've always been serialized in that manga, so at this point, fans of her kind of know what to expect. But yeah, two big series, or two big creators coming back with new stuff. You'll love to see it. And yeah, manga is awesome, and we don't talk about it enough on this podcast, so that's why we're doing it today, because Caroline, she doesn't read manga, admits can't read, period, so that's what we're doing here. But if you are also one of those anti-manga stalwarts who are just about the anime, let's do a quick anime review of a new one in Unexplored Pictures.
Get your popcorn ready. It's time for Unexplored Pictures with Mason.
So today I want to talk about a movie called Maboroshi, aka Alice and Therese's Illusory Factory, which is definitely the weirdest alternate name for a movie that I've seen, because it doesn't really correspond with any of the characters or anything that's going on, which is why even on Netflix, where you can watch this, they just call it Maboroshi. And it came out on January 15th, and which is pretty soon after the September release of the previous year in Japanese theaters, which I love. I hate when a brand new movie drops and I have to wait 6 months, 8 months, 2 years before I finally get to watch it. So I was excited that this came over to the States internationally as well so soon. It is produced by MAPPA, and it's directed and written by Mari Okada, who has definitely her fans and detractors. I tend to enjoy what she tries to do, enough at least to give this a shot. And this is her first movie since 2018's Makia When the Promised Flower Blooms as both the writer and director. So definitely with her manning all the elements, I was curious to see what would happen. So this story tells the story of a group of 4 friends staying up one night in like the 1990s, working on their homework around a kotatsu, just having a good old boy session of homework and gabbing and just being goofballs. And all of a sudden there's a massive explosion at the nearby steel factory, and they're like, oh shoot, what's going on? And they run outside and they see these massive cracks forming across the sky with these dragons just shooting across the sky, and you're like, dang, what's going on? And it is soon discovered that the entire town that they live in is closed off from the outside world, not just from the machinery breaking down and the landslides that it caused, but literally in the flow of time as well. Just time does not pass within their little like bubble environment. Nobody grows up, nobody dies, and stagnancy is kind of encouraged, because when people try to develop or change, more cracks appear on the sky and on the person themselves physically, and that ushers in a kind of not pleasant fate for that person. So everyone's kind of told to, stay, I can't even talk, stiff in time and just unable to progress. And obviously this movie is very clearly inspired by the coronavirus lockdowns, and it just takes it into a fantasy science perspective. Not like in a faraway kingdom fantasy type stuff, but just in these characters have to rebel against this iron lockdown of big industry, which is a steel mill in this case, and just kind of factor in against this fantastical element that's kind of keeping everyone at bay. And as far as the characters go, it has quite a fair bit of the signature perversion and romance-fueled melodrama that Okada has made a part of her style. And as usual, it's a pretty mixed bag for me. I do think there are a lot of good ideas at play that talks about humans' desire towards evolution and change, and kind of how you can't stop that, both in the self and the environment they occupy. Humans are made to progress and develop and not be so stagnant. And the kind of, I don't know, almost religious-like comfort that this big company kind of sells these falsehoods to be like, oh, it's okay, everyone. Just don't change. Everything will be all right. We know best. Don't do anything. And that kind of authoritative lockdown is just never great. And even with all that going against the characters, the insecurities and dreams that shape all of our lives kind of are what propel us into the future. Even if that future isn't always pleasant, it's better than not going anywhere. So change is good, people. Don't fight it. But the big drawing point of this movie has to be the production. The visuals, the music, just the production as a whole is very well done. It looks so clean. It looks like a big movie that you would expect. So good for that regard. But at the end of the day, the characters were just too much for me. They're not muted in any sense, which is not a character adjective that you would use in Marioka's writing, but the bombastic personalities that you find here go from 0 to 100 at the drop of a pin, and it kind of takes me out of it and lends the movie a kind of sense of camp and underwritten emotions that undercut a lot of the more serious scenes. So overall, Maruboshi, it's pretty mixed from my perspective, but it's on Netflix. It's easy to get your eyes on. If you like Okada's previous works and more abstract storytelling methods, because there's a lot of big twists at the end that are kind of engaging, I would recommend it for that regard. But if you just want a laid-back, relaxing watch, you might find things a bit more unrewarding and confusing. So that's my token anime-ness of the episode. Let me know if you've checked it out. And now we can get to the actual main topic of 2023 manga. That's what we're here to do. So I don't read as much manga as I used to or as I should. And with Mitz and Caroline out, I was like, what's a topic that they wouldn't mind missing out on? And I thought the first thing that came to mind was manga. And so what I did is I went through a whole heckin' lot of all the manga series that debuted last year in 2023. And I just read chapter 1 of all of them. So these are just manga from Japan, started in 2023. No one-shots or spin-offs or sequels, though we'll have some honorable mentions for that. And I read just chapter 1 because chapter 1, if you've never read much manga, tends to be a juicy, like 5 times the length of a normal chapter. So usually it develops into something that you can get a good sense of how it plays off your palate, because, you know, just a normal 20 chapters, it's not much to go on when you think about it. So I read a chapter 1 of, we're going to go through all of these, and I'm going to list my 10 favorite at the very end, so you can skip if you're impatient. And really, hopefully, you can take away from this is A, some recommendations or things that might interest you. How much stuff is out there? How much, I mean, we think there's a lot of anime. There's just so much manga being pumped out. And yeah, some of it's cheesy and filler stuff, but a lot of it is just really unique or engaging, or just there's some good ideas out there. And we'll try to see which ones we think might become an anime adaptation. And that way, when they do come out, you can feel cool because you're like, oh, I checked it out before anyone else. And that there's something kind of appealing to that. It's like finding your favorite band before they made it big kind of thing. Some things I couldn't find translations for everything, though I did try to read scans of a lot of these because while I can read some Japanese, I wasn't going to go through 50 or 75 of these things trying to translate it. So I did the best I could, kind of picked at random and tried to hit the top ones at most. So let's see how this goes. We're starting with just a whole list of not even noteworthy ones, just ones that I read, that I experienced, that I'm going to tell you about, and then we'll get to the best ones at the end. So in the chat, let me know if there's any that you're like, oh, this one is really cool, you should check it out, and we'll see. So manga number 1 is Chimidoro Ice-Cream, which is a 4-coma series, essentially the 4 koma, is just 4 panels in a vertical orientation. They're usually like a gag manga. They're usually silly, and it's a comedy. So this is a 4 koma about a transfer student who eats raw meat on account of her being a zombie. And it's not very good. It's just like a gag horror movie thing where, not even movie, manga, wow, where a character, like instantly we were just revealed that she's a zombie and she eats meat, and you're like, cool, what do I do with that? And I didn't have much to go on because it's just 1 chapter, but it was whatever. Next up was Lost End, which is a ReZero-esque like isekai reincarnation thing where this guy with weird forehead lines, I don't know what's up with the art with this one, but they have a bunch of weird scratchy forehead lines like they're blushing. And this dude gets taken, as well as a bunch of other people, to this fantasy land, and he's told he must reach the top of the mountain. And he starts being like, well, I guess I'll start walking. And he just goes and he starts his hike, and just like ReZero, spoiler, he just gets mauled to death and just gets ripped his guts out by all these wild creatures, and he like restarts at the beginning. And he's like, oh, here we go again, GTA meme style. And yeah, if you like ReZero, this might have a lot of that same stuff that goes with it. Art was super graphic and violent. Obviously, if that becomes an anime, it probably doesn't get the same gory treatment. But hey, there's some liberties and art styles that you can get away with in manga, and this one was pretty fun. I'd be interested to see where this goes. It might be a little too gruesome for an adaptation, but Lost End was certainly tapping into that ReZero itch if you want some of that. The next one definitely has a title that explains everything, which is I quit being a man, got cancer, so I decided to dress up as a woman and fall in love, which is actually about true events, and it feels like a less psychological version of the fantastic My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, about this guy who got cancer and decided to start, being a woman and start transitioning to that side, and kind of his turmoil and reception of others and himself in society. And it's definitely not as hard-hitting. It's not as quite in his own head the way that My Lesbian Experience is, but still pretty engaging, pretty entertaining, and definitely gives you a glance into what must be a very difficult world of that kind of transition. So unique, but not a must-read. Next one is Shinkabansese, which is similarly dark, where it's a death game where contestants are punished for committing suicide. And essentially all these people get together, they're out of luck, they're not doing so great, and they kind of do a ritual suicide pact. They take their medication and they're just kind of waiting around in their room as a collective for death to take them. And instead of killing them, death takes them to this fantasy purgatory world and forces them into these like weird trials to like judge their souls and determine, do you really want to die? Do you really not want to? And the big weird thing about all of this is that it's based off of a Vocaloid song. So this whole manga about death game suicide combatants are based on a little song. And that's certainly unique, certainly dark. It didn't really engage me that much, but we'll see where it goes. I don't know. There's not much to say with only reading chapter 1, but you can check that out if you find that interesting. Next is MILGRAM, Jikken Kangoku to Kanshu no Shoujo, which this one is about 5 murderers who all lose their memories and find themselves in prison. So it feels a little similar to the previous one. And they're also undergoing death game prison type battle royale stuff, except that they're guarded by this adorable bunny creature named Jackie. It's just a cute little like jackalope, that's the Jackie name comes from, and kind of this little this little rabbit makes this other person be the judgment of these murderers and determine if they're truly evil or if they're not, based on how they play these games. I read this 2 weeks ago. I don't really remember this one. probably cut this in the final version. We'll see. We're just goofing off here. This next one is interesting. So this is called Tatari. And there's this brother and sister who, you probably guessed it, no parents. And this stray cat visits them every day. And every day they give him a little bit of food. And he's like, eats the food like cats do, runs away. And every day he comes and he gets food and gets food and gets food. And one day, the brother is murdered. Turns out that the parents were murdered, and this big gangster conglomeration is trying to hide all the evidence, and they're making sure the kids don't speak or spill the beans or whatever. So the brother is murdered, and the cat, I guess, is some psychotic creature who, like, morphs into the brother. He, like, takes the form of the brother, buries the brother, and then as this demonically possessed cat child, like, goes on a vengeance quest to, take vengeance on that, like, mafia gangster group. And definitely it's sad, and then it gets gruesome, and then it gets all sorts of wild. Definitely was engaging, unique. I'll post pictures on YouTube. I'll make this better. But Tatari was pretty fun. Just sad. It's just sad to think about, and I don't like sad stuff. Naruto was literally just about a Garu who opens a Chinese restaurant. The art was not very good, but if you like boobs and ramen, that one's for you. Next one is My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps, and it's about this guy who just can't get it up unless his girlfriend is a psychotic yandere. So essentially, as a child, he fell out of a 2 or 3 story window, and he plummets, and he's caught by the bushes. And he survives, but just the fright of being scared to death is something that he's never been able to replicate. So he kind of is numb to his everyday life because it's just not exciting. It doesn't get him. Just normal girls, going to movies, hanging out with the boys does nothing for him. So he's just he's got this veil. He's just blinded to life. And all of a sudden, there's this girl that starts crushing on him, and she's like, I'm going to kill, she's a yandere. So she's hyperly fixated on him and threatens him and does all this scary stuff if he doesn't stick with her. And that fear of being murdered by his girlfriend is the closest thing to his near-death experience, and he's oh, I love that feeling. So he just gets psychotically bullied by this girl, and they're a couple. I don't know, but it's goofy. I guess if you like yanderes, you're finally being appealed to. Ishigami Senki takes place in olden times, where this peaceful wedding ceremony between these two powerful clans is broken up by a violent betrayal. One family betrays the other, slices them all down, and our main character loses an arm in the process, and she's running away oh no, my family is doomed, we're all gonna die. And she finds this rock person who's just this super powered entity within the form of a rock, and agrees to marry him in exchange for his power. And I guess she's going to join forces with this rock person and then take vengeance on the family that betrayed her family. I don't know. It was kind of whatever for me. Looked alright, but yeah. This next one was an experience, which is Nagisa no Shark Maid, which is about another dude, a little bit older than the child, maybe teens, I don't quite remember, who lost his parents, but it's okay because he has a maid who looks after him, cooks for him, cleans for him, and she's also actually kind of a shark, except when she's not wet, and then she just takes the form of a human, and then they kiss. I don't know. It's a weird, oh, I'm in love with my maid, and they kind of have feelings for each other, but she's a shark. I don't know. I don't really get this one. But I read it, and you can too if you want. Next up is Killing Line, which definitely gives me a weird, uneasy sense, similar to the My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps sort of relationship, where it's based on a foundation of shaky emotional baggage and necessity. But this tells the story of Mako, whose mother presumably died, and her father abandoned her at 18. The second she turns 18, he's like, "You're an adult now. You're out of my life. I'm not supporting you. You need to leave." So she hits the streets, and she's like trying to find a job so she can, keep on going to school and all that. But she's having trouble holding a job. Just nothing seems to be working out. So she is forced to begin dating sugar daddies. It's a term in Japanese called papakatsu, where she goes out on dates and restaurants and stuff with these wealthy individuals. And it's kind of like an escort sort of service thing where it's just keeping them company and all that stuff. So it's her first day out with her new sugar daddy. They're having an okay time, and they decide to go to a love hotel after their meal. And she's like, "Oh, well, let me go to the shower. Let me freshen up. Let me, be more presentable for whatever deeds they're about to do." And she comes out of the shower to see her new sugar daddy getting his head blown off by a hitman. And she's like, "Ooh, that's not good." And the hitman turns and sees her, and obviously she shuts the door and she runs into the bathroom, and she's like, "Oh shit, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" Guy barges in. He's like, I can't let you live. I need to kill you. I need to dispose of all the evidence. And she's, reaching at straws to see what she can do to save her life at this point. And she's like, "I don't want to die. I had a date scheduled for next Tuesday with this boy to go see a movie, and I have so much to live for, blah, 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 blah." And she's just spouting out everything she can do to try to, save herself, to appeal to this guy's sympathy. And it turns out that this hitman is this boy that asked her out to go see a movie next Tuesday. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were actually going to go with me. That makes me so happy." And she's like, yeah, I love you so much. I can't wait to go with you." And so she has to pretend to love this assassin person so that she doesn't get killed. So I guess they're going to go date with her just constantly lying to him to not die, which just doesn't feel good to me. But I don't know if it's going to be hijinks and gags or what, but that's Killing Line. It was kind of unique, but I don't know. Let's see. Up next we have Firefly Wedding. So this is in the Meiji era, and it's the same exact story. It's the same exact story as Killing Line. So Takuro is born into this prestigious family, and she's, beautiful, but she's very sickly, and it said she's going to die anytime soon from her illness. And so she's just kind of a convenient marriage for her family. They're going to marry her off to a wealthy place, get all the benefits, and then she's going to die, and that's going to be the rest of her life. And suddenly she's targeted by this assassin who doesn't want that merger to go through of these families, and she has to once again just appeal to this murderer to be like, "Hey, marry me, and the murder will be stopped, and you won't have to kill me. Thumbs up." And the person's like, "Yeah, sure, fine." So Firefly Wedding, exact same thing, except it's not modern day. Why? We don't need these stories. I don't like them, at least. Next up, August 31st, Long Summer, which is the only thing longer than summer is these legs. They're very Clamp-esque in their designs, but it's pretty good, actually. So this is a time loop romance. Think of like a poor man's Groundhog's Day. So we have these two people, man and a woman, who are looping through and replaying the same day, August 31st. And immediately they're pretty endearing because it starts on like the 7th or whatever day it is in their loop. And they're like, "Oh, seeing you again? Yeah. Still going through this? Yep. And the guy's like, "Well, a lot of times in these time loop kind of shows and movies and manga, it's because the character has some unfulfilled desire or something, and it's usually romance. Like, they never confess to their love, and therefore they can't move on past that day." And he's like, "Well, So, like, I kind of like you, so maybe we need to have sex to get out of this loop. And the girl's like, no, no, instantly shuts him down. And essentially, the the whole conceit of this is that each day this guy is going to kind of sort of make moves on her, and until he kind of endears himself to her. It's like a poor man's guide on how to get with someone, but just with this whole like time loop backdrop to it. It's actually pretty endearing. It's actually pretty funny, silly, goofy. I don't know how much it will get into. I'm sure it'll eventually have a romance, and then it will end instantly because they'll get out of the time loop, or maybe there's more twist. August 31st, Long Summer. It was pretty good. It was kind of cute. Let's see. This is kind of a weird one. So this is Tsuruko Returns the Favor. And it tells the story of this extremely strict high school teacher named Neko Kado, who super dour, everything is by the rules. He's yelling at kids for running in the hallway. Hey, your skirt is like too short, whatever. Like all that kind of ticky-tack teacher nonsense stuff. And he's been living alone since the death of his sister. And, his parents died young, so his sister kind of had to raise him when he was growing up. And he just always has these memories of her just kind of being the mom fill-in and having to work to support them, having to clean and cook and do all that. And he contemplates if she was ever really happy living that life of a fill-in and not getting to experience her youth and her life the way she would have wanted if she was free and kind of unburdened from him and the death of their parents. So he's kind of like, oh, did she really live that fulfilling of a life? Ho-hum, all that stuff. And he's going through and cleaning one day, and he finds a picture of her in a Maid Cafe outfit. And he's like, what? She was involved with this? I never knew of this. So he goes to that Maid Cafe to try to learn more about his sister and her time there and all this stuff. And he's never been to a Maid Cafe before and gets served and goes through the whole... I mean, you've seen Akiba Maid Wars where they do the songs and dance to make the food taste better. They draw the heart in the amu rice. They take the picture with the person. And it's just an all goofy thing as he's trying to experience it. Like, I'm not really here for that, but fine. And it's like a very nervous, his first waitress's day at the job, so she's messing everything up, and it's fine. They're having a good time. And the end of chapter 1, it determines that the waitress that he had at the Maid Cafe is one of his students. And now they're going to kind of have a teacher-student sort of relationship thing as he mends his heart from his dead sister because she mentored this junior waitress that is now his student. It's a bit of an age gap romance. I don't know, makes me a little uneasy, but it's well done enough. So if you like that appeal, Tsuruko Returns the Favor is a manga that exists, which is, I can certainly say, more than... Well, no, we're doing good. We're making our way through. I'm sorry. Next up, My New Friend Wasn't What I Expected. This is Horimiya, the Yuri Watercolor Edition. That's really all I need to say. Next up is Shojo Null. This takes place in the 23rd century, where we have these things called Gijins, which are organic robots, which are essentially mass-produced workers, servants, and soldiers. And one day, a transport vehicle of 5 of them gets in a huge accident, but one of the organic robots, the Gijin, escapes. And she kind of limps with, arms missing and all this damage to this person's house, who this boy kind of takes her in. He's like, oh, I'll take care of you. And the news reports are like, oh, missing bioweapons category 5 robot is on the loose. And it's clearly this same person. And, society is like, we can abuse these people because they're just robots after all. And obviously the whole point of the manga is that no, robots have sentience, they have feelings like us, and we need to cater to them. And it turns out that the boy's parents were like researchers in the robot field who determined that robots actually do have those feelings and emotions. And they're like, government, you have to stop this. These are, they're not humans, but they're like humans, and we need to respect their rights. And of course, the government's like, no, there are machines, there are servants, there are soldiers. We need them to kill for us, and we're going to kill you. So they kill these boys' parents. So the boy now has this grade 5, whatever, bioweapon. And he's like, what if we just go on a gory revenge killing spree? And that's what they do, starting with these like live streamer kids who discover them like walking in the park one day. And this little shoujo girl bioweapon robot just starts gorily dismembering all of them, and it's edgy. It's certainly edgy. And that's about it. Next up is Star Strike It Rich, which is done by Kengan Ashura and How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift creator Yabako Sandrovich. And this is just an underground female fight club. Yeah, that's about it. Next up is Kill Blue, which is done by Kuroko no Basket creator Tadatoshi Fujimaki. And this is about this super overpowered killer. Think of Lloyd from Spy Family. He just is the coolest, suavest, most best killer, most best, secret spy kind of person who, for some reason or another, some magical gobbledygook, he reverts to his 7-year-old self. And he needs to just do these missions now as a 7-year-old without revealing his identity. And it's just a child does killer spy stuff. It's pretty typical overall. It doesn't have the same excellence as Sakamoto Days, a manga I much recommend over that. It's fine. It's fun. I love, blew my board. I love mangas with the word blue in them, but this one is just okay. So Kill Blue, I don't know. I could honestly see this getting a adaptation, but it hasn't really wowed me in the first chapter. Next up is one of the more interesting manga on this list, which is Shibatarian, which is a not scary yet horror manga, which just gives you this queasy, uneasy feeling despite not having something you can point to. So it's about this boy who goes to a tree one day, and in the ground near the tree is a dude's face just popping out of the ground. He's like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Some people, as a prank, they buried me here, but I'm doing all right. If you could help me out, that'd be really great. And he kind of befriends this boy who got buried, and they begin writing a movie about this boy's life. And every scene, nothing happens, but something is just always not quite right and off kilter. And there's just a sense that this whole thing is going to descend into madness. And I'm so curious about where this manga goes, because I can't point to something like, oh, it's super gory or super graphic or super, mentally disturbing or anything like that. It just has the sense that things are going to get really messed up, and I'm interested. I don't think it will get an anime because the art style is very choppy and stuff, but if you like a Junji Ito mindset without the Junji Ito art, Shibatarian is a manga that is definitely something that is unique. Next up, I read A Useless Idol and the Only Fan in the World, which is about this adorably cute idol who can't sing, can't dance, has no fans except this one person who is just like, I like you. I like you maybe because no one else likes you, but he cheers for her despite all her mishaps and mistakes, and it's just a cute manga. It's fine. Let's see. I don't even remember this one, which is MamaYuyu, which has really neat visuals I wrote, but feels aimless. Yeah, I don't remember that one. The next one has a title so long that it explains the entire thing for me, so I'll just read it. The story of a man who is reincarnated as the shittiest guy in a doujin, but the heroine keeps on coming close to him. So this guy is reading these very explicit, lewd doujins. He gets reincarnated as the guy in the doujins who is like the guy who cucks the other guys, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm not that guy. I'm not a bad guy." But then he starts acting like a good guy, and then all the girls can't help but fall for. I don't know. This is bad. I don't know why I picked this one, but I was just randomly going through, and this came up, and yeah, not good. Next up is Blooming Love, which is a sweet and endearing after-school arts and crafts romance. This is a girl who's good at crafts. She does birdhouses and stuff with her hands and tools and that kind of thing. And we have the art boy who draws and paints and does all that. And they help each other out in the after-school arts club room, and it's really cute and endearing and fine. It's like if DIY met Blue Period, but they kind of don't like each other. I don't know. It's good. It's fine. If you like romance, if you like arts and crafts, literally Blooming Love is for you. Read it. Next up is the most depressing thing ever. It is Maria no Danzai, which is just the biggest revenge porn series setup I've ever seen. It's not my thing, but it's certainly impactful. I will give it that. So it's about this kid who just gets so brutally bullied in just the most horrific ways, like maggots down this guy's throat, like that kind of level of just disgusting stuff, until he tragically takes his life by jumping off of a cliff as his mother's like trying to come save him. And she's just so broken. She like essentially learns about these bullies that have been tormenting her precious child, and she's like, okay, it's on, and like becomes a teacher at that school, and is probably just going to do the most messed up stuff back to them. It's like, I felt bad reading every single page of this thing. So it's effective at what it does, but I hate it. So if you somehow like that stuff, Mario no Danzai, it's well done, but man, gross. Okay, we're almost at the end of the whatever list of that this is before we get to the honorable mention. So stick with me a little bit longer. Love Agency. This one I think a lot of people are excited for. This is written by Aka Akasaka, who did Kaguya-sama and Oshinoko, with art by 5 Milli Nishizawa, which is known for the Ganbare Doki-chan, which is a super adorable anime as well. And it's about this girl who is just like the most perfect. Think of like a foreigner version of Kaguya. She's beautiful. She can, I forget if she's Swedish or from what Nordic country, but she's wearing great blonde hair. All the girls love her. She has the best sense of fashion. She's just so cool, and everyone loves her. Except that she grew up at a all-girls school and literally cannot talk to boys without just breaking down. So she wants to, try the dating pool, but she has no experience. She can't talk to boys, and she's just like lost. She's Kaguya essentially. And so she enlists this love agency, which is represented as this floating chibi fox entity. Essentially, you pay a ton of money to this company, and they promise to take care of all romantic pursuits. So they give you like a little air bud monitor thing, so they can listen in and tell you what to say to each people. They will tell you how to dress and all this stuff. So they are like the most wonder kid of romance apps, whatever. Because you have a lifeline, a person who's on the other end of the phone telling you, here's exactly what you need to do to win his heart, kind of thing. And she kind of falls for this nerdy, bookish type in the library. This boy who just, I think, is overwhelmed by her beauty and grace. Like, she's too much of a woman. He can't handle all that. So they're trying to, bring her down a bit with certain plays on how to win his heart. And she starts, doing the service, and it's kind of working well, and she's kind of starting to get closer to this boy. And the whole twist is that this boy, this nerdy, bookish boy, is actually using the service as well, and is actually not the person at all that she falls in love with. His whole personality is created, manufactured by the agency to get her to fall in love with him. So essentially, this whole series is two people trying to fall in love by not being who they are, because they're just by proxy being controlled by these two other people who work for the same company. So they're just making moves on like 4D chess scale. And I don't know, it's another I read a lot of books or a lot of manga about romance that does not have a good basis for what a romance should be. But it's gonna be something. It'll probably get adapted, so there you go. Love Agency, it was fine. It just didn't wow me as much as his other works. And finally, we have Rugby Rumble, which is a sports manga about rugby. It's Haikyuu and Slam Dunk. It's all the pretty boys and coolness of Haikyuu with the, oh my goodness, I can't even think of the word right now. The rough and tumble, Yankee boy, hooligan, ruffians of Slam Dunk. And they play rugby. And that's what it is. So, I liked it, but I don't know how many people like rugby. So, I read like 10 or 15 more of these. They were even less of note than this, so let's get to the honorable mentions. So first up with this is Nikaido Jigoku, aka Hell Golf. And this is a work done by Nobuyuki Fukimoto, most famously done Kaiji and Akagi. And this is just about this guy who plays golf, and he was like a prodigy, and everyone expected big things from him, even though he just started playing golf. And he became a pro, and he just has never won. He's never been successful since making it to the big leagues. And he's just kind of sulking and living with the fact that he has been a failure. All these people had just grand expectations for him, and he's not living up to them at all. He's trying his best, but he just keeps on falling short every time he plays. And I'm guessing that it'll turn into a dark underworld, Birdie Wing-esque gang golfing thing where he has to use his golf skills to play for his life, or to, I don't know, some sort of thing. If you like Kaiji, it hits all the same notes. Super weird, very angular face styles, and just a humor in a dark place that just, you laugh, but you're kind of nervous about it. It's great. He has a Callaway logo on his hat that just turns into go away, and I think that's really funny. I don't know. If you like his stuff, you already know you're going to like this. I'm super engaged. I would love to see an anime of this guy playing golf to save his life, or whatever it is, whatever weirdness it's going to turn into. It's depressing. It's hilarious. It's probably going to be super intense. Hell Golf. Check it out. Yes, it is Phil Mickelson for sure. Next up, I don't think I need to tell anyone about this, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 9, the JoJo Lands. It's here, baby. It's in Hawaii. It's more JoJo. What more do I need to tell you? The series feels very progressive these days, and not just in regards to its musical selection, but there's a lot of characters and talks about like police brutality and kind of their role in society, transgender folks, and kind of those kind of politics. It just seems very modern in its approach, and it's just good. Jodio is awesome. Rocky is awesome. It's just more JoJo, so it's good. If you've already read them, you know you should be reading this. JoJo Lands continues to be fantastic. So then I actually went onto the Discord, and I, hollered at you listeners, and I said, okay, what manga from 2023 are you guys enjoying? What should I check out? And here's what I got. So from Sejinther, he said, Isho ni kuroshite ii desu ka, or Can I Live With You? And he had not read it yet, but he said, this is the new manga from Kei Sasuga, who did Domestic Girlfriend. So you already know what kind of trash dumpster harem fire this is going to be. So it begins with this MC being broken up by his girlfriend, and with his limited savings, he resorts to finding a share house, which is essentially just a rental apartment that you rent and live in the same space as other people. And he goes to his friend, he's like, give me some good recommendations, and his friend takes a screenshot of like a poster. He's like, oh, I found this one, it's super cheap, looks in good condition, go check it out. And it just got posted today. So the guy's like, oh, I'll go there right now. It's like 300 yen a month or whatever. It's super cheap. He's like, I can't miss this opportunity. Books it straight there, comes in, and he's like, oh, I saw this clipping. I would really love to be considered. I'm out of my luck. Could really use it. And the proprietress of the person who owns it is like, oh, it's very nice of you to come so quickly. We appreciate it. But this is a women's only share house. You know, we can't have men sharing the same place with women. You know, it's not that kind of place. So, sorry, but we're not interested. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll go back. And he goes to walk towards the train station, and he's like, oh shoot, I lost my wallet somewhere. I can't afford to get on the train. It's okay, I have my phone. My phone has my cards on it, has battery. It can, you know, bloop, 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 and get on the train. He looks at his phone. He has no battery. So he's like, I'm sorry to do this. Can I come inside and just charge my phone so I can then pay to get back to my friend's house, who can, like, I can stay at his place for a day. And of course, if you read any Domestic Girlfriend, any of her works, you know where this is going. So he goes inside, and he's staying holed up in this room, charging his phone, and then all hell starts to break loose. Because you know, eventually, he has to use the bathroom. So he has to then walk across the house. And of course, he runs into all sorts of things, from people with their shirts off, so he's seeing boobs. There's a lot of boobs in chapter 1, let me tell you. And just gets into all sorts of hijinks with these girls who are all obviously attractive and of age, and gets into all sorts of wackiness just in chapter 1, and eventually ends with him being invited to stay because they love his cooking, which he made for them as an apology for all the riffraff that he causes in like the 20 minutes he's there. So yeah, you're gonna get a guy living in a house with 5 very distinct different girls, harem style, as they all kind of hate him, and of course will develop a thing for him. Can I live with you? I mean, I don't like it, but I'm not going to say other people won't. So yeah, Trash Fire. Obviously getting adapted. You know it's coming, but there you go. Next up, from Tantalized Funyuns, is Ki ni Naturu Hito ga Otoko Janakata, which is the guy he was interested in wasn't a guy at all. And while this technically originated in April of 2022, it wasn't serialized until 2023. So I'm going to count it because it also wasn't published in print until April of 2023. So this is pretty interesting. It's a cool green coloring on everything, which is really striking. And it tells the story of this Garu who falls for this mysterious, cool record shop employee. And she goes to this record shop every day, and there's this really cool, once again, tattooed, air pierced, just really low, just vibing, cool man at the cash register who wears a face mask and just a hat, so you really can't see his face. And she's telling all her friends in the classroom how cool this guy is, how suave and mysterious, and she's like, I love going there just to talk to him. I don't want to know more about him, but he's so reserved that I can't get a read on him, and I'm just so endeared to him. And of course, this mysterious man that she loves is a girl who actually literally sits right next to her in the classroom and can hear this girl talking all about how much she loves this mysterious guy who is her. And she's like, I'm not that person at all, in her head, but of course she's not going to reveal that. Eventually, it does get finangled out that I mean, that she's not a guy, but they still, still kind of like each other. So it's really cute. It's a cute comedy. It's cute romance over time. I'm hoping it's cool how they connect over music, actual music, talking about Foo Fighter spin-off stuff in Dream Widow. It's engaging. It looks cool. If you like a fun little Yuri comedy romance, definitely check out. The guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all. Spoilers, by the way. Next one was... Let's see, I got a couple recommendations from Mr. Chias. One was Martial Master Asumi, which is the same mangaka and world as Hinomaru Sumo, which is an anime. And this one was pretty good, and I thought it actually might even become an anime itself, except literally the day after I finished reading chapter 1, the series ended with 4 volumes, which probably isn't enough for a long-running anime, but it was pretty good. It's a story about Nito, this kind of porky, pudgy boy, and his friend Yuya, who get bullied, and they start learning MMA as a form of self-defense, kind of boost their confidence, and it's kind of a sport thing, kind of not. The visuals are really solid. Some of the characters have vampire teeth, but hey, that's fine with me. And while I wouldn't really continue reading it just because it's, a fighting sports kind of show with pretty endearing characters, I would say. An interesting point is Nito's father is like dealing with dementia, and it really has a hard-hitting look at what kind of toll it takes on a family to care for someone who doesn't have that capacity of memory and retention and all that stuff. And it really hit hard in a lot of ways, despite that not being, what the manga is about. So Martial Master Asumi, actually pretty solid. I enjoyed it. Definitely won't continue it, but it's only a short read. So if that sounds good to you, if you like MMA, give it a shot. It won't take too long to go through. Let's see. He also recommended News Exorcist, which was pretty tropey and bland. I don't really remember that one. But the one he did recommend, and I definitely was going to check out, and the last one I'll talk about before I get to my top 10, which means this didn't make the cut, which is Beat and Motion, which is actually the winner of the Million Tag manga competition. It's Shonen Jump kind of hosted this battle audition for discovering the next manga creator. And this work won. And as a prize, this will be an anime that will be streamed globally and exclusively on Netflix. So this will be objectively an anime to some degree. So this is a series about the struggle and joy of creating art, which, as I mentioned earlier with Look Back, I always enjoy that kind of stuff. Visually, it's actually pretty wonky, but it's got heart, especially in the struggle of this boy to become more than average as he starts the process of being a mangaka and just realizes he's not that naturally talented with it, and kind of how that persists of just being average exists in Beat and Motion and music and art and animation. And it gives you that inspiration to give it your all, and it's awesome. So I guess the backtrack a bit. This guy wants to be in animation, kind of fails. He just doesn't pursue his passions, and he kind of gives up. Same thing with music, and he kind of just takes a lackluster job or whatever, and he just kind of gives up on everything. And one day, in a fit of motivation, he posts one of his old animation pieces, and this girl who previously berated him for being like, hey, you can't give up, you need to continue fighting, you're such a loser, I hate you, I hate people like you who don't pursue their passions, turns out to be this idol diva, not idol, but this musical creator that he's always been a fan of. She's like, oh, she sees that animation not knowing it's him, and invites the animator, him, to be like, hey, can you do the animation for my next music video? And he's like, oh, yeah, like, of course, I'm not going to pass up that opportunity. And now they're going to have to get together and realize that they're the two people that said they hated each other, and pair his animation with her music. And it'll probably be good. I don't know. Chapter 1 was promising, but it didn't blow me away. So that's Beat and Motion. Okay, all that nonsense to the side. Let's get to the top 10 manga from 2023 that I read. And hopefully you like one of these. And hopefully some of these get adapted, because I think it'll be really cool. Number 10 on my list is Tenmaku Cinema, which is from Food Wars creators. And essentially is Hikaru no Go meets Bakuman, where this boy who loves film goes to the theater each and every day, always is watching film. He's in the film club. He's doing all this stuff. He goes one day and he gets possessed by this dead screenwriter, and this screenwriter like kind of inhabits his mind. He's like a visage, this phantom that only he can see and interact with. And this dead screenwriter is like, hey, I have this great movie script planned. I need you to go talk to the director I was working with and get him the ideas, because this is going to be the best movie ever. I need you to take my ideas, write them down, deliver it to this director, and then I'll quit possessing you. And the guy's like, well, I got bad news for you. That director's dead, so you have no one to make your film. Okay, bye. And the dead screenwriter's like, nope, I won't accept that. This is the best movie ever. We're going to make this happen. And essentially they go on a quest to find the next director and next person, an actor. And essentially they're writing a movie. It's a manga about writing a movie with two people occupying the same brain. I don't know. It seems weird, but it's got great visuals, pretty solid comedy. I love the dynamic in Hikaru no Go, except in this case, both possessor and possessee already enjoy movies, and it's probably just going to be a love letter to cinema and film. And Tenmaku Cinema shows a lot of promise in its first chapter, and a lot of what made Food War so good in the beginning part of its series. So I'm invested, and I could see this getting adapted, so check that out. Number 9 is Cosmos, done by Ryuhei Tamura, who did Beelzebub. And I honestly don't even know how to describe this. So this guy has this superpower of sorts to tell when people are lying. And that seems like a really great power at first, until you realize how many people might be hiding their true emotions from him. And they're like, hey bud, you want to hang out? I love, being friends with you. And he can tell that that's all a lie. He's like, oh, you just want to hang out with me to be with my best friend or something like that. And he kind of, I don't know how to say this without spoiling anything. He gets roped into intergalactic insurance fraud. And essentially what is happening is aliens populate multiple planets, including Earth, and they have to abide by certain insurance policies that cover them and the planet's entire financial system in case no good stuff happens. And his skill of detecting lies kind of recruits him into this global policy, intergalactic policy, of monitoring these aliens and figuring out if they're trying to do insurance fraud on a global scale. And it's really goofy and endearing. And, there's probably going to be a bunch of these arcs of dealing with different aliens and figuring out what makes them tick and if they're actually, good or not. And it's weird. I haven't seen much like it, and I enjoyed it. So that's Cosmos. Number 8 is Brave Bell. So this is a story about Soji, who is the son of the head of a Yakuza family. It's one of those, he wakes up and he has 70 dudes being like, good morning, boss. Good morning, boss. Good morning. As he goes to school, because it's this massive organization. And he loved watching this anime as a kid called Brave Bell, which is about this cute little animal who always wanted to do good. And he's like, that's going to be how I live my life. I'm just going to be a do-gooder. I'm not really going to get into Yakuza. My dad is like, hey, you don't want to get involved with this business. It's no good. You just want to be a good pure, honest boy. We see him go to school. He's kind to folks. He's looking out for folks. He's just being a good boy. And you're like, yeah, you do your thing. You don't need to be a Yakuza person. And he comes home after school one day after someone's like, oh, there was a call. You need to get home. Something happened. And he comes home, and this entire family and all its clans and all this entire Yakuza group, he finds at his front door in the shape of a meatball. Like, they've all just been butchered and hacked and slashed and mushed together in this giant amalgamation. It looks like a Bloodborne boss. And this kid is just like, what? This is my family. They just got murdered and slaughtered, and I don't know why. And he has to put his being a good boy aside as he, gets vengeance and becomes the new Yakuza boss. And it just was a really snap of a turn, and it was cool, and I liked it. Brave Bell was I did not expect it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So yeah, I just like the idea of a human meatball. That's kind of funny to me, despite how gross it sounds. So there's that. And yeah, I'll post a list of all this stuff. And yeah, it's not Aqua Teen Hunger Force, unfortunately. That'd be funny. Number 7 on my list is Dogs Red, which is a manga that I've talked about before, and an anime that we've talked about. We want it to happen one day, and this is probably the best shot we have of getting, finally, a decent hockey anime. So, this is done by Golden Kamui creator, whose first foray, actually before Golden Kamui, was a hockey manga called Supinamarda, I think, which existed for a couple volumes and is now being rebooted as Dogs Red. So, are we finally going to get a hockey anime? I hope so. So, Dogs Red follows this figure skater who is just way too rambunctious, and his violent outbursts kind of shuns him from the world of figure skating. Like, he's almost a Happy Gilmore-esque person where after doing his routine, which is amazing, he gets angry at the scores and he takes his skate off and starts slashing at not people but just the decorations around him. So he kind of gets shunned by the figure skating world, and he has to go back to his home, a little rinky-dink place in the country, and there's a frozen sheet of ice, and that's where he finds peace, and he does his figure skating out in the open. But it turns out he wasn't allowed to do his figure skating on the frozen lake in that area, because that's where the good ice is. And that good ice is where the hockey players, the hockey thugs, do their practicing. So he kind of gets challenged by the hockey team and no-gooders to prove himself as a competent skater. He's like, oh, I could do hockey. Hockey is for losers. Figure skating is where true athletes shine. And he's going to get roped into doing hockey. It's pretty good. It's funny. It's accurate in a lot of the equipment they use. The biggest issue is similar to Haikyuu, where the net disappears in front of their face. The helmets, the cage, the bars, just kind of have a big oval in them where there's nothing, so you can see the characters' faces. It's fine. The visuals are blocky, but they're stylish. They get the job done. And I want a hockey anime so bad. I don't know if this will be great, but it exists, so I need to support it as a hockey boy myself. So that's Dogs Red. Let's see, where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 6 is a lot of fun. I actually like this one a whole heck of a lot. And that is Service Wars, which is essentially if Sakamoto Desuka met Food Wars. So this is wild. This is so goofy and it's so stupid, but it just is silly enough to work, just like Sakamoto. So in this decrepit closed down shopping arcade, which is in Japan, they have these rows of covered walkways, aisles, where shops line every side. So essentially just a shopping mall in America, just on a street that people can walk through to get from place to place. And they're pretty cool. But the shopping arcade is closed down. Everything is broken, beaten up, out of business, except for one Chinese restaurant called Ajimaru. And their holding on by a thread. It's like a father and his daughter are just scraping by, like barely getting customers, barely getting any, revenue or service. And he's like, yeah, we're going to close down, like, if we don't make money, like, this month kind of thing. And one day this guy is just, like, crawling through the streets with, like, no food. He's, like, starving. And they, like, take him in, they give him a meal. And this guy, this starving guy, all of a sudden becomes the greatest waiter you've ever seen on such an absurd and ridiculous scale that it's like laughable, but I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's starving in the street, and the daughter's like, oh, let me give you some food and some water. So she goes to bring him water, and then the next thing she knows, she is sitting down being served the water by him. Like, that's how good of a server he is. And she's like, wait, wasn't I delivering this to you? He's like, no, I'm on a quest to become the best waiter ever. And I can't explain all these crises that happen to this restaurant that he solves with these ridiculous antics. And his eggplant-shaped pupils, it's like he's playing 5D chess when no one else is even playing against him. He just is on another level, and his buffoonery and his bombastic nature pulls in all these people to the restaurant. And it's one of those things where to explain what exactly happens is to spoil, the comedy of it, which is very good, very sharp. I don't know how well it will hold up from chapter after chapter after chapter, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed the first chapter of Service Wars. Definitely recommend checking out if you like Sakamoto Desuka. It's a grand old time. It's silly. Check it out. I don't know what more to say. It's fun. Number 5 is called Rai Rai Rai, which is if Ranma 1/2 plus Parasite plus Kaiju number 8 plus Doro Hidoro all just got pushed in a blender and spun until it became hot soup. In this manga, mankind is essentially fighting against these alien species, like Kaiju number 8. They kind of invade, and people need to clean up after it and whatever. So this girl is on pesticide duty, where she goes around cleaning up the little baby teeny aliens. Like, it'll invade someone's, like, crawl space, and they have to clear it out kind of thing. Like, that's the level of aliens that she's combating against. And one day she gets kind of UFO kidnapped and brainwashed or whatever. And similar to Parasite, where this alien inhabits the dude's right hand, this alien inhabits her whole kind of body. And so has this alien side of her, which is dangerous because she needs to be exterminated. But it's kind of like a good alien. So they go around fighting other aliens. Except that this good alien is not good at all. Awful, evil alien. And she's constantly fighting with this alien within herself while she fights off other aliens and all the other humans that want to kill her because she has an alien inside of her. It's just kind of charming despite all the killing of aliens. And I'm not into alien stories that much, but this just really has a good sense of what makes these kind of things compelling and endearing. And I don't know. It's fun. It's fun. I don't think this will get an anime adaptation, but I sure would like one. Okay, sorry for the delay. We're into the top 4. These are all really awesome. If they sound appealing, I recommend checking them out post-haste. So, number 4 is Mujina Into the Deep. This is done by Inio Asano, which just that word alone should probably get people hyped. He is known for Oyasumi Poon Poon, Dead Dead Demons, Day to Day to Day Destruction, A Girl on the Shore, Downfall, and Solanin. So if you've ever read any of his works, you know you're going to get all of his signature stylings. You're going to get awesome character designs. You're going to get intricately detailed worlds, and you're going to get some blowjobs because he just loves putting in weird sexual stuff into all his manga. But it's okay because this is a very mature, ridiculous show of this high-octane, sword-slinging ninja girl with cool shoes who goes around just slicing and dicing people's faces and arms and limbs, I guess they're the same thing, off. And I don't even know why or what is happening really at this moment, but this world is just so cool to look at and live in. And this girl just bounces around and committing the crime as part of like an organization or something. I don't know. It just looks so good. It's so well put together. Asano is a master of making these worlds feel so lived in, even without having to, exposit about everything that's happening in them. So it's just hype. It's just hype at this point. It just pulled me in so hard. I don't know what's going on. I'll let you know in the future. I will definitely be keeping up with Mujina Into the Deep. And it looks so good. Just look it up. Do it for me. And you'll have a fun time with it. So just obviously be warned that there is some sexual content in there. Okay. Number 3 of my favorite manga that started last year is Kagurabachi, which is probably one of the most hyped manga that I encountered in my travels. A lot of people are really into this. It's high scores online, high rating. A lot of people are reading it. And this lives up to the hype. Very engaging. Definitely will be an anime one day. Guarantee it. But it's good. It's good for a lot of reasons. So it tells the story of Chihiro, who spends his days training under his famous swordsmith father, who forges these great katanas across the world. And the comedy of it is so unique in such a way that you don't see. Like, it's not just about the comedy of, haha, character said something funny, other person laughs, which has that, because his famous swordsmith father is just an authentically goofy parent. And I think we the readers can sympathize with having a parent that is just kind of, yeah, you can respect them and look up to them, but they're also your parents, They don't quite know how the internet works, and they're just kind of silly in public sometimes, and you're just like, it's endearing in that way. But no, it's comedy, and it uses the medium of manga to express things in a very unique way. For example, the speech bubbles or thought bubbles will have features on them sometimes to represent the person who is doing the thinking, so that person doesn't need to get drawn. And it just is a really smart way of communicating who is having this thought or idea or saying these words without expressly having to draw them in that scene when they wouldn't be there. So it's kind of hard to explain, but it just does a lot of things within the medium of a manga that really is sharp and cool. Excuse me. Apologies. But on top of that, this is stylish, it's violent, it's very symbolic, and it just has good pacing. And essentially, Chihiro, it kind of, time snaps into the future as he has to take up the sword and use some special powers. I'm really trying to be vague about this because I think it's experienced best going in kind of blind. And I think a lot of people will be checking this out in the future one way or another. So I'm trying not to spill too many beans, but it's good. Kagurabachi, it's a little shonen-y. It's a little fun, but it definitely has a lot of heart to it. I would say it's similar in what I got out of it to Chainsaw Man, which is, I know, a high bar, and they're very different stories, but I definitely would recommend it. Definitely had a lot of fun with it, and it definitely expressed its ideas in a gamut of interesting ways that I would recommend. So number 2 on my list is Tower Dungeon, which is the latest manga by Knights of Sidonia, Blame, Kaina of the Great Snow Sea, all that good stuff creator, Tatsumo Nihei. And this looks so cool. I just love the art style of this thing. It's not intricately detailed like Mujina Into the Deep or stuff like that. It just has this very warbly, simplistic, like it's all black and white, but I would say it's pastel colored, but like a dreary pastel is kind of how emotionally it hits me in its art style. But this evil necromancer has killed the king, and kidnapped the princess, and has taken refuge in the Tower of the Dragon, this giant structure that like descends suddenly from the heavens. And okay, it's a classic fantasy. Knights need to go to rescue the princess, right? Right. So we've seen that before. And so the royal guard, all the knights, go to assault the tower and rescue the princess. And they were all thwarted, all either killed or pushed back, and they just have had no luck going through. And they've been sieging against this giant magical tower for weeks, months, to no avail. And so they're starting to, lose motivation and, more importantly, resources, men, bodies, people to actually do the sieging. So they start going around to all these towns and kind of recruiting almost like a tax. Like every town must submit one youth, one person to represent them and, continue the effort towards saving the princess. Because you got to save the princess. And our main character, Yuva, is a farmer, just a good boy, trying his best, who works the fields each day. And he's kind of the only person of age, of physical ability from his small town. So he gets volunteered to go, and he kind of makes the journey to this tower where he meets up with the knights who are battered and broken, and he kind of joins their forces to help however he can. And chapter 1, a whole heckin' lot happens. So he gets conscripted because of his work in the farms and fields. He has a lot of strength and can carry these big jugs of not souvenirs, of supplies up to whatever point in the tower they got to. And they just meet so many cool, and by cool I mean dreadfully designed, but like really visually interesting villains and creatures that are fighting them. And it just has a vibe to it. And I know that's impossible to properly convey through a podcast, but the sense of going through these labyrinthine chambers and different floors, not like in a Tower of God Sword Art Online where each floor has different master boss kind of thing, but just the progression up this endlessly imposing structure just fills me with a sense of dread and inspiration. And seeing how they overcome some of the challenges is not like a mystery, but it's just enduring and magical, and it really touches on some sort of core elemental current of what I enjoy about this kind of stuff. So Tower Dungeon, it's just a vibe, and I really like it, and you should check it out, and it's fun. And I don't know. Last one. We have one more to talk about, and then you are released finally from this rambling escapade of manga nonsense that I've been on. So thank you for sticking with me, and let's get into it. My favorite manga that I read in this whole endeavor is Wild Strawberry. And I don't just like it because it had such a nice, easy to pronounce English name, but that's kind of part of it. No. In Tokyo, these parasitic plants known as Jinka have infested the entire ecosystem. Tokyo is in shambles. It is in ruins. It is decrepit, and what few survivors remain are like quarantined. And these plants, they take over buildings, they take over infrastructure, and they take over people too. And this is very clearly inspired by coronavirus and all of that stuff, because the people in this world need to constantly be upkeeping on their vaccines. If not, they will explode out with these flowers, and it will not only, destroy them as a person, but it puts everyone else at risk of inhaling the spores that they would emit as these flowers. And that's kind of how these plants have propagated and overrun the city. And kind of similar to Rai, where the girl is like possessed by this alien who is kind of helping her but kind of not. the main character's sister in Wild Strawberry has gotten the flower virus. She is in the process of turning into these deadly flowers, but hers, for some reason, has not taken over her body. She's kind of been able to remain as a fully functioning human despite her, start of growth of flowery appendages. So our main character is kind of hiding her in the apartment because no one can know, because they would go to kill her or whatever, because she's at a risk. But he's trying to, still live his life and support her. And as you might expect, one day she gets discovered, and this whole fire fighting group, which is to say firefighters who literally fight with fire to burn these plants, attack and turn on her and try to eliminate the evil virus, the plant that's in her. And he tries to fight them off, and he gets just absolutely murked and killed. And her flowers can still withstand it. And then I guess her flowers imbue themselves into him. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know. It's so well drawn. It's very well paced. It's definitely setting up more of a foundation that could topple over and not be as enduring in the long run. This is the most I could see this getting kind of lame and also getting really cool. But just the experience on how it took such a global pandemic and expressed it in a different avenue that was still engaging and fresh and new and emotionally devastating and still inspiring. It was really unique, and I'm really glad I read chapter 1. I don't think this would be animated, but if it did, it might be kind of cool. I don't know. It was worth checking out. Wild Strawberry was my favorite experience of last year. And I hope you enjoyed sticking with me. Like I said, this is a very atypical episode. Sorry I rambled for so dang long. We'll probably cut this down in post and clean it up a bit. But thank you guys, everyone who stuck with me. Let me know what manga you read that started last year, or even not, that you just really enjoyed, and I'll check it out. And we will be back in full force next week. I'm sorry. Love you guys. Really appreciate you. And I will see you guys then. So stay classy. Read the